Hello everybody, welcome to our live dissection of a sawfish. I am Barbara and I'm the principal scientist at Sharks and Rays Australia, and this is Maddie. Maddie is an intern with us from the University of Adelaide.
Yeah.
And so we got a sawfish here today. We're going to start with external anatomy of the animal and then go towards the internal organs of it. So just be advised that there will be some content that some people might consider graphic. I think the first thing that I would like to say about this animal is that it was donated to us, and it was donated after somebody experienced an accident. So there was an incident and which prevented a fisher from checking his nets, and so by the time they could get back to the nets, they found dead sawfish in there. And they really did the right thing. They informed fisheries about it, and fisheries then forwarded these animals to us so that we can use them for research and collect a lot of data from them. This sawfish is a narrow sawfish. It's a juvenile. It's probably within its first year of its life. And the first thing that you can look at is the saw, right? So this is what makes sawfish unique. Sawfish are rays, but they do have that shark-like body. What you can see on the saw here is, when you look at their teeth, and I think you can see that here, that these teeth have little hooks at one of the sides. And so when this species is born, they're born with the teeth not fully poking out yet. There is a protective sheet around the saw, but then when these teeth start growing and start poking out, they have these hooks on them. We don't quite know what they're for, but if you compare that to the saw of an adult sawfish from that same species, you can see that these teeth don't have those hooks anymore. What you see here is that the teeth are rounded, and that happens because these teeth grow continuously throughout the life of the sawfish, and when the animals use them for feeding, they also use the teeth. They will also sharpen the teeth on the sand, on the substrate, so they don't just grow endlessly. The second thing that I wanted to point out is when you look on the outside, so this animal has been defrosted, so it was sent to us frozen and we just defrosted it. You can see that there's some layer of like slime and stuff coming off it. And a lot of the commercial fishers will refer to this species as slimy sawfish. We call it a narrow sawfish, but they call it a slimy sawfish. And that's because their skin is really slimy when you catch them. And I don't know if you've heard, but sharks and rays have dermal denticles. So they're these little skin teeth. And so generally the skin of sharks and rays is really rough. It's sandpapery. And on this animal, there's little bumps. So these bumps are individual denticles. So this species doesn't develop the denticles until they're about 1.20 meters long. And before that, their skin is uncovered and it's slimy. So it feels slimy to the touch, which is quite different from other sharks and rays. So you can see on the saw here at the front, there is dermal denticles on there. And so they're visible on the saw, but if you go here further back, there is no denticles. So this animal doesn't have them fully developed yet. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at its sensory systems. Check out their eyes. How cool are they? So these are the eyes of a narrow sawfish. You can see that they're quite big. So they're the biggest eyes in relation to body size of any species of sawfish. And some sharks have a nictitating membrane, so like a third eyelid that comes over and protects the eye, for example, during feeding. Well, sawfish can't do that, but what they do is, if they want to protect the eyeball, they can fold the eye into the head. So it really then lines up with the head. This is a pupil that right now is adapted for wanting to have maximum light coming into the eye. But if the animal, for example, wants to have less light coming into the eye, there is an operculum. So it's kind of like a triangular piece that's internal in the eye, and that will just come down and fold down over the eye. So it literally looks like that. It looks like the scalpel. We've seen comments on the internet that some people think that rays have 4 eyes. They don't. What sits behind the eye is the spiracle, and that's actually the first gill slit. And when you see an animal sitting, what they can do is they can pump water through that spiracle, and that allows them to passively ventilate their gills. So that means they can sit still and ventilate their gills. When you look at this from above as well, you can see a unique adaptation in sawfish is that when you think of rays, most rays can't move their heads independent of their body. They're like a big pancake where everything is fused together. But sawfish not only can move they can move their head up and down. You can see that. So the joint at the back of, so this is actually where the head ends and where the body begins. So the joint in the back here allows it to move it up and down, but they can also rotate it. So they can do a figure eight without moving the body. So they can really slice at prey with the saw and keep their body still, keep the balance in the water. So what you can see on the underside is, first of all, the mouth. So this is the mouth. Sawfish have absolutely tiny teeth. So if you open that mouth, here is the upper jaw. And you can see those in, like, there's tiny little dots on there, and that's individual teeth. Now what you can see here, these little pores, these little black dots, each one of them is an ampulla of Lorenzini. There's some more over here. Each one is an ampulla of Lorenzini. So that's electrosensors where each one independently detects the electric field in the environment of the animal. And so that's used for prey detection. And the ampulla form a network on the skin of sharks and rays. So basically it's as if this animal can, on its head, it can detect where an electric field is around it. And so it knows, for example, that, you know, the prey, the little fish that it wants to feed on is here, because those sensors will detect an electric field, whereas the sensors on this side won't detect it. Next sensory system that we can see on this animal, and a lot of young sharks and rays, they're really kind of transparent, so you can really see things on it even without cutting it open. So this here is the lateral line. See that canal running in there? There's another one running here. There is another one running along here, but this is probably the best ones. And they go all the way along the saw. And here you've got crossing through the canals from the ampulla of Lorenzini. And so the lateral line is what is also called distant touch, and it allows these animals to detect water movement around their saw and around their head, and also around their body. So it can again detect animals swimming around them and detect currents in the water and stuff like that. Lastly, we've got the nostrils, and these are really cool in this species. So if you look at this head from the side, you see that there is you see how you get the saw, but then see how these nostrils are visible from the side, and they really got an inflow, so that allows water to be funneled along the saw and then flow into the nostril and then flow out here. And in here we've got sensory structures that allow these animals to smell. You see that there's really fine comb structures. That's the internal structures of nostrils. All right, we got the sensory systems. Now just a quick anatomy lesson. These are the two pectoral fins. This is the first dorsal fin and the second one. If you see a sawfish swimming around in the shallows, quite often what gives them away is that the two dorsal fins are of equal height. Similar to lemon sharks, but the other thing in sawfish is that they can fold dorsal fins over, so they're quite loose. In most sharks they're really stable and they can't fold them over. And here we have the pelvic fins. I should also show you guys first the cloaca. So this is the external opening of it, and here we got the pelvic fins. And with sharks and rays, the way to distinguish boys and girls is that boys actually have two external organs that are part of the pelvic fins, and in girls you don't find those. In juvenile sawfish like this one, for example, those claspers that you find in a boy would be very small and wouldn't be visible. But what you would do is you would check here and see if there is a clasper, which would be here. And then once an animal is sexually mature, the claspers are really long, so they're a lot longer than the fins here. But so here we got a girl. There's no claspers. So even if it's a juvenile, we can already say, just from externally looking at it, we can already determine sex. I think I should say, when you work with endangered species, you don't often get to dissect an animal, because in all our work we're trying to keep them alive. So this is not something that we do all the time, and so it is something that is quite exciting and unique. So we've already opened the body cavity of the animal to show you that. What you see here is the gill slits. So in sharks and rays, they're not covered. They're open directly to the external environment. So when you think of fish like barramundi, for example, they have an operculum that covers all the gill slits, and then there's just one outflow area. But in sharks and rays, they're all individually open to the outside. And here, so these are the pectoral fins, and so this here is the pectoral girdle, and we cut that here, but it's made out of cartilage. And so here in that space between the gills is where you have the heart, and we're going to start cutting now. So we got the heart lying here.
So unlike humans, fish, sharks, rays, they have two-chamber heart. So the front part is the ventricle, and the atrium will lie behind that. And they also have two structures connect to the heart, which are like the preemptive second atrium and ventricle.
Yeah.
Because they only have really sort of one pump to the gills, and that's meant to get around the body as well.
Yeah.
So these are the precursors of the second chambers.
Oh yeah, cool. And so here you can see how I've already accidentally cut into the area, but there's this whole chamber in here where all the gill arches are sitting in here next to the heart. And here we have the internal organs of a sawfish. We found this one. We're quite curious to figure out what this is. We don't know it. It looks like the liver has some kind of a damage on it, but we'll have to send samples away for identification, for figuring out what this could be. All right, so this is the gallbladder, as we've discovered, and that's the gall liquid coming out of it. So do you want to talk us through the internal organs?
So probably the most prominent thing you see is the liver. So this liver actually has 3 lobes, so 1 there, 2, and then 3. You've got the stomach here, which is J-shaped. Nice big one.
Yep.
You've got this dark spot here is the spleen, so that's got to do with immunity.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And then you've got the intestine, which, as you can sort of see, it's almost like tube-shaped, so it's little spirals in there.
So it's a spiral valve. Yep.
So that's to help slow down the food as it's being processed, so all the nutrients can be taken up. So sort of like if you go down a spiral slide at a playground, if you sort of
it takes longer than if you go straight. Yeah. And so the spiral allows to extend the surface, so it increases the surface area. Maximizes the surface area that is available for digestion, I would assume. What do we have lying in here?
This is all new to us as well. So I think we have pancreas here.
But so what you can already see is in large animals, any shark or ray, the liver would take up the most area of the cavity, the body cavity. So in the liver, sharks and rays store fat and oils. And so sharks and rays don't have a swim bladder. So when you think of, let's say, a barramundi or a archerfish, they have an internal organ that is basically a gas-filled bladder, and that allows them to regulate their buoyancy, so they can regulate where they want to sit in the water column. Now, sharks and rays don't have that, but in order to be positively buoyant and not continuously crash into the bottom, what they do is they store oils in their liver. And that used to be, I think, quite important also economically. So squalene is what that liver oil was called, and comes from squalus, which is with dogfish. So they were harvested for that. What we're trying to look at mainly on this animal is we're looking at different methods of how we do things when we attach tags, for example, on animals, on live ones. So we're testing this method on this dead animal. And then we're also going to look at the weight of the liver, look at the stomach, look at the spiral valve. We're going to cut that open, look at the inside, what we find in there. Do we find any prey items and things like that? I don't think we're going to dissect all of that. We might upload some of those videos later on for you guys to watch, so you will see more of this. So I think we're gonna probably stop our Facebook Live now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.